Let's jump into our conversation about weathering the slow season. So first, I'm excited to introduce Sheneka Friesen. Get ready to be inspired by the amazing Sheneka, the successful owner of Romaris Apparel based in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Sheneka's journey to entrepreneurship started in high school, and since then, she has become a shining example of hard work and determination. With a business management degree from Huntington College and years of experience as a former ambassador of the Chamber of Commerce of Alabama, Sheneka launched Romaris Apparel in 2017 and has since expanded her business to offer plus size clothing sizes, home decor, and merchandise from various colleges. Her passion for meeting people who share fond memories of their alma mater is second to none. We're thrilled to have her here today to share her expertise and to inspire us. Welcome, Sheneka.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction.
Wonderful. And finally, we have Chad Patterson. So, Chad is a business executive and strategic visionary with over 15 years of experience in finance, sales, and marketing. Chad has successfully founded three ventures and is passionate about helping small business owners and entrepreneurs scale their ventures. Welcome, Chad.
Thank you for having me. Hello to everyone.
Welcome. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into the conversation today. Sheneka, my first question is for you. Can you share a moment when your business experienced a noticeable slow season, and what was that like for you?
As you said, I am in the business of collegiate apparel, which means I sell merchandise based on universities within the Southeast area, such as the University of Alabama, Auburn, LSU, just to name a few. I noticed last year, and really since COVID, that there has been like an up and down decline and peak when it comes to collegiate purchases, period. And based on that, last year really had me in a pickle because I steady noticed that there was just like, I was just not able to connect to my customers like I once was. Once I really saw what the problem was, it wasn't my time, it wasn't the pricing, but I noticed that it was more emotional purchases. If anybody knows anything about football, especially in the Bible Belts in the South, they are really connected to their team. They always expect them to win no matter what. And we were in transition of having a new coach. So that becomes one of the major problems, too. It gets to a point where if the coach is not performing at that first game and they don't have their first win, you can give it away and they won't take it. So what I had to do was really go back to the basics. I had to start promoting the before the game days way earlier. A lot of times you spend so much time trying to get people to purchase those things beforehand, 1 week or 2 weeks before the big game, but they never do it. It's always that Thursday or Friday before that big Saturday game. And so what I had to do is I had to come to them a lot sooner. I had to come to them with different packaging prices and different bundlings, which I'll go into details a little bit later in the chat about that. But I really had to look at how I was positioning. Was my Google page up to par? Was my social media up to par? Was I getting the information out on time? And I realized that I was not, I was using the email list, but I wasn't using it effectively like I should have when it comes to the day of the game. So that's one of the biggest things that I seen last year is that I really had to go back into what was working and what wasn't working. And I realized that it was not just a situation of pricing or anything. It was just the fact that they needed to see me before they got there. So they'll know that I would be there at that game before that Saturday. So I really had to reposition how I was showing up.
That is super helpful, just especially when you talk about how your product and how it's an emotional based purchase. And so sometimes I think we'll get into this more, but slow seasons can be so different for each type of business. And even someone in the chat, we need to know our audience, we need to know where they're at. So that was really, really helpful. And I like the sneak peek of what we're going to get into later,
Okay.
that you shared. Uh, Okay, my next question, Chad, is for you. When a client says they're in a slow season, what's the first thing you help them assess or look at?
Yeah, well, first let me start with, so my dad is from Alabama. So
Okay.
I am a definitely big fan of Alabama football, so I can totally understand where you're coming from and hearing that.
You
Hopefully
understand.
Yeah, hopefully, I've been a saving guy for a while, so hopefully this new coach does what he's supposed to do. But that's for another time. So, I think for me, and back to the question is, I think the first thing is really just about like shifting the mindset, right? Like just from like panic to possibility, right? I think one of the elements that our company does well with, in particular, just even on advisory support, is really diving into the data, seeing like what the numbers are saying, and really looking at kind of three critical elements, like what's the revenue health looking like, what's your current like customer activity looking like, and if your company kind of offers currently still align with like market demand. You want to build your business around like a problem more than you building around something like an idea or of a concept. So I think one of the biggest things that entrepreneurs kind of, at least early on, is they focus a lot on sales. I think it's more about understanding internal and external problems. That's really important. And then from there, you can build a more realistic plan moving forward. I think the other part is like slow seasons. It's not always a bad thing. Sometimes it could be really helpful just to recalibrate, right? So I think that's something to think about too when I'm talking about the mindset. But something that is really valuable that Brittany alluded to early is AOF has advising and expert coaching that you can utilize at your need, and you can get kind of tailored support from a variety of different experts within that space to kind of help complement some of the operational needs, during those slow times, and make sure you are prepared for success.
Yes, I really like that. Well, and we dropped the link again because you just never know when you kind of need someone there to help you. We've heard like entrepreneurship can be very isolating, and so sometimes you just need a fresh set of eyes or someone to validate, your experience. And also, Chad, I like what you said about slow seasons aren't always bad. Sometimes it's a notice or a time to recalibrate. Sheneka, my next question is for you. What's one creative or unexpected way you've brought in revenue when business was slow?
Well, I noticed, like I said earlier, that the sales were kind of on a decline. They were kind of really like an up and down motion. So, one of my golden rules is, especially if you work in retail, I try not to keep too much inventory past 1 or 2 years. The reason why is just because, a lot of times you have that inventory. Sometimes what you bought maybe a year or two ago, maybe the hottest thing on year three. So I try not to keep too much because if you kind of look at it, that's kind of like money that you're hoping people are going to buy so that you can, recoup some of that you spent out. What I have noticed is that even if you're doing such as a sale or a clearance sale, it's not enough just to have a clearance sale. You really got to go the extra mile. You may get people to stop and come in or shop online when they see clearance, but you got to go the extra mile. And one of the things that I did was I made a list of some different things I had been tinkering with the year before, but I was kind of nervous on doing it. And so I decided to execute it. Just like Chad said, this is a time you can be very creative. Just like during COVID, when people were trying to find ways to stay contactless and stay within the health guidelines, this is a time where now we know what worked during COVID. Now it's the time for you to really get into your creative bag about things. And one of the first things that I did was fill a bag, as simple as it sounds. What I did was for $40, I knew when you know your prices, you're going to have to realize that you may take a slight hit, but it's better than having inventory just sit there.
Mhm.
So for $40, they got to fill the bag up with whatever was in that rim. Now, this included clothes, this included like little blankets, this included nothing was off because it didn't make any sense to have it just sitting there for another game day season if I wasn't selling it. And I can tell you what I probably had, we'll just say it was probably maybe like $500 in inventory. I got everything. I think I left there with maybe 6 pieces of clothing left. It sold like hotcakes. So that could be an idea that you can think about, even if you're in food service, if you can find something maybe on the high end and on the low end, and you can find some way to meet in the middle, just like a pre-made lunch. Some people only have 30-minute lunches. So it could be a good idea to have like a condensed lunch menu that people can kind of like come in, order if you do Uber Eats. That could be something that could really be not only just budget friendly, but can keep the momentum going and keep money coming in. Now, it may not be like a filibuster. You may not get totally rich, but you can recoup some of your losses in a sense of making sure that that product is not sitting there and it's just not wasting time or money for you. So that's one of the things that I did. Another thing that I did, which people think it's like outdated, I don't care how small of a gift it is. If they got something free with a purchase, they love it. It's just the thought. Right now we're all being very conscious about the dollar that we're spending, no matter if it's at the dollar store or at a department store. So if you can make your customer feel like their dollar is valuable, that they're getting the best for their buck and they get more for it, that's where you're going to be able to not only just retain the customers that you have, but bring in more customers because they're going to feel like I got so much for my money today. So that is something that can really help.
Yes, I love the idea of kind of capitalizing on the creativity that was needed, not so long ago, and then really just taking it to the next level. I love the idea of filling a bag or whatnot, because like you said, yeah, maybe you're not going to sell it for as much as you wanted, but you need to be able
Correct.
to move that inventory through your business. Um, Great tips. Chad, my next question is for you. What are a few quick win strategies or revenue strategies you often recommend to clients who are facing those dips in sales?
Yeah, for sure. Before that, I just want to build on kind of something that Shanika said because it was like really important. I think everything she alluded to really was focused around like the customer. I think Jeff Bezos is one of the, regards if you like him and whatnot. I think he's one of the critical leaders that really built a company that's all around the customer initially. I think some can argue now that's not the case, but I definitely think, again, creating a business around a problem and really focusing on that user experience for the customer is totally advantageous. But back to your question, Brittany, I think, for me, when I look at a couple of different things here, I look at like, I usually just try to focus on three like elements. That's kind of like my focal point to not overwhelm like my clients. I think one of the things when you're looking at like these quick wins and when those sales are dipping, I think reactivating dormant customers, right? I think that's something that you want to do. That's kind of probably what Shanika was alluding to. Sending targeted campaigns or just to re-engage them is super important. I think the other part is just like creating some sort of like urgency call to action. So, eliminate time bundles or flash sales, which again, I think is pretty linear to what Shanika was alluding to. I think the other side is like upsell or downsell, like what's already working. So sometimes it's easier just to add another layer, wrap around service for like existing client to improve the average order value, right? So, I think all these different things are centered around like how could you provide more value for that actual customer or re-engage with folks who you've already built trust with, right? If they've already purchased from you and whatnot. I think quick wins really are just more smaller wins that you should compound, right? And I think this really helps you build authentic momentum. There's a book that I'm going to tell you all about, Psychology of Money. This is like a game changer. And there's a session in there that the writer talks about Warren Buffett, and he talks about how there are investors that were more intelligent than Warren Buffett, right? And the difference between him and other folks is like consistency, where some folks would, do things for a little while, and then when seasonality comes, they'll like take a step back, where like he would continue doing the same thing over, repetitive activity, and it found to be that like he became exponentially more wealthy because of his consistency of just doing the same thing day in and day out, right? And not necessarily trying to change based off of like seasons. And I say that because you're every once in a while you're gonna get like really significant wins. That's like rare. Most of the time you want to take these small nominal wins and just compound them. And like when you're having those dips in sales, trying to focus on those small wins over a course of times, year over year, which essentially just compounds to really authentic value. So just something to consider as you navigate during those seasonality times.
Yes, such good information about how you don't just want to like resurrect those quick wins or whatnot. It's something that you should continue to do. So it's continuing to pour back into you. And I see a question in the chat. Yes, we will drop the name of the book in the chat. That was The Psychology of Money. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Chad. Okay, perfect. And I see there's some questions about service based industries. I'm taking note of those, so when we get to the Q&A, we'll touch on that as well. So if you have your questions, please continue to drop those in the chat. Um, all right. So, and we will be sending the recording out. I'm seeing that question as well. Okay, Sheneka, my next question is for you. How do you keep your customers engaged or top of mind, especially when they're not actively buying?
Well, this is the time you have to reconnect, such as Chad said, you have to reconnect to your customer base, especially to the ones who have purchased from you or such as that are on your email list or social media. What I have found is that you don't always want to approach every post with buy something from me. I have this for sale. This is coming up. You want to engage with people like you would engage with. Maybe you would think of them like your coworkers or close friends. Meaning, start posting current events. I mean, we can't turn on the news or any part of social media without hearing something about that's going on in our government or our local community. Start engaging with your customers on current topics, for one. You may want to make like a calendar to say to which day which you would like to post. If you would post something like funny on one day, something that's going to engage the customer the next day, maybe a helpful tip on the next day, things of that nature. Be more well-rounded. Nobody wants to always see your email and oh, they must have something for sale today. Be more thoughtful and mindful about where you want your customers to be in that mind frame so that when it comes to a sale or something that special you have coming up, they're not going to automatically see your email and decide not to read it because they just know you're trying to sell something. So they want to see things like behind the scenes. They may want to see, like the day that wasn't such a great sale day. What did you do on that day? Just more so, or just making sure that you understand that your customers, even though you may be having a hard time, they may not be having a hard time. So you just don't want to come off negative. You want to stay as positive and uplifting as you possibly can, but just make sure that you're doing more than just trying to sell, because that's not going to win everybody. They're really going to ignore that. So just the little things that you won't even think that people would like to notice. For instance, this one lady, she sold, I think, like bakery goods on TikTok, but she did an engagement where she was doing crossword puzzles and the numbers were off the list. And I before I knew it, I was watching it. I mean, all that they were doing was crossword puzzles, and it had nothing to do with what she was known for. But they like it. And it's just the smallest things you wouldn't even think of that people really start to get engaged about. So it's really like you are building a community. So you will just make sure you want to hit other points besides just what you're in business for.
Yes, the crossword puzzles. That's so interesting. But it brings
Right.
up a good point because I see it, there's a lot of people in the comments who are asking about service-based businesses, or you have a seasonally like business that's going wild. Maybe it's an ice cream shop and you're in the Midwest and people ain't really thinking about ice cream when it's -4 degrees, but they can be thinking about you if you're consistently out there, which I think is so helpful, Sheneka, and like having that schedule of, okay, I'm going to show up and do something funny. I actually really love your social media, Sheneka, because there is such a variety in the content. We dropped her socials in the chat, but definitely really good tips for staying top of mind. Chad, my next question's for you. What are some smart ways business owners can build loyalty during slow times without overextending themselves?
Yeah, for sure. But I gotta build off what Shanika said because like I have a really great like story to think about that you all gonna be like glad that I said this, right? And I wish I actually understood this concept a long time ago. But one of my advisors was like, Chad, do you know who Oprah is? I'm like, yeah, no, I don't know who Oprah is. Of course I know who Oprah is. And he was like, well, why do you think Oprah is like so valuable and like she can sell anything? And I was like, I don't know. They probably like her personality. She seems like, she's probably relatable and things of that sort. And he was like, yeah, wrong. And I'm like, okay, right? And he was like, no, Chad. He's like, the reason why Oprah can sell anything is because she's already built trust with people. She is in their homes every single day. sharing insight, sharing tips, sharing tools. So they already feel like she's almost like an advisor to them. So he was like, this is why she can sell anything, because she's not always selling things. She's actually always selling value and insight. And it was like a like my mind like blew up, and I'm like, duh, like that is like that makes so much sense, you know? So I think what Shanika was saying is like I don't want it to be overlooked, because I do think that is really valuable of just like trying to provide as much insight and as much knowledge as possible. Then when it's time to layer it with actual like sales driven solutions or services, you've already developed some sort of trust with, you know, your customer, that they feel like, okay, this person is now providing something that's going to be valuable like they have done historically any other time. So anyway, just wanted to build on that. So back to your question, I think, you know, I don't think you need like a huge budget to build loyalty, right? I think you need consistency and intrinsic value, right? Basically, what I was alluding to. So I think, you know, some of the things that are valuable during these times, and without like overextending yourself, is like just sending like a personal check-in email. You know, sometimes those go over really well, because sometimes people, you know, especially if you're older at this age, like you're a husband, a wife, or a parent, like you're usually doing the checking on other people, right? People are typically not checking in with you. So I think there's the psychology of money and how you think, you know, is something to consider. I think the other part is just like offering exclusive content or like early access to some of the things you're working on. I think, you know, I had a previous startup and I'm actually working on my fourth company now. But, you know, what we did was like anytime we were doing new iterations, we would say, hey, we have a set of folks that if you want to be a part of our early access, program, you get to hear about some of the insights that we're working on, some of the things, and we'll love your feedback, right? Like, so we can kind of make sure we're building things that are in the best interest of our customers. And I think the other part is like, this is another thing that's really valuable and something that we utilize. In my last startup, we worked with a lot of different like celebrities and athletes, right? And we thought about their psychology of like, oh, they're always being praised, right? They love when people are praising them. They hate when people are downing them, but they love when people are praising them. So what we did was anytime we would like showcase an actual athlete or celebrity, like talk about them, like we would post something nice about them, right? So like almost like uplifting them. Now take the celebrity or the athlete out of the equation here and replace that with a customer. You know, maybe it's, hey, this customer is just one of our greatest customers. You know, they've purchased the most, or they supported us the most, or they've referred the most other customers to us. Like trying to re-emphasize your community and uplifting other people that are part of that community is like super low lift, and it just gives people, you know, a emotional feeling and connection to not only the brand but like them as a consumer, and they feel like the money that they're spending is being valued the right way. So, you know, I think things just to consider is like, you know, these are low lift efforts, but like high touch actions that remind your community of like why they chose you in the first place.
Yes. Oh, I love the idea of uplifting some of your customers or clients because I can imagine that as a consumer, I'd want to be a part of that. And I'm with you on the mind blown moment about Oprah selling value every day. So when she does offer up something, because I've definitely bought something from Oprah's favorite list, I'm like, yeah, yeah, girl, absolutely. Let me get these cups. Because you don't realize how she has developed this long-term trust with you, and so it's you've become this loyal customer. So that is really helpful and such an interesting way to change your mindset. um okay, Shanika, so another thing, you know, when times are slow, this is kind of like an interesting thing, but have you ever used slower seasons to invest in your systems or your teams or your future offerings? And if you did, can you share what worked well?
Yes, I was really waiting for this question because I may need a little bit more than 4 minutes. Okay, so guys, if you see me looking down, it's because I want to make sure. I definitely want to give the meat in this. Okay. The reason why this is so important, because this is the reason why we are here right now. This is the reason why the topic is needed right now. And let me tell you why. This is the time, if you're slow, this is where you need to educate yourself. And I don't mean educate yourself and what's the big current, what's the next viral moment. I mean literally educate yourself. I finished a certification recently in product management, where it really tells you, it takes you from the infancy of an idea to the market. It reminds you of every stage that that idea goes from, the pros and the cons, what's it going to cost to get it to the market, who you're going to focus it to. And even though this course was more tech based, it all boils down to the same idea. We are in business because we had a service or a product we want to bring to a market, enhance it, make it better, whatever the case may be. It may be something brand new, or maybe you decided to reinvent the wheel and you just found a way to make that product better. This is what it's about. I would also recommend doing project management, because if you are an owner and you do have a team, this is where you're going to get a lot of your resource, and you're already doing product management as it is. So these are things you need to do. You need to go on places like, even with the Google courses or Udemy. They have a load of different courses that you can take, that you can do it at your own time. And they break it down within like 2 to 3 minutes. They have quizzes on it, but it really helps you bring back the fire, I feel like, back into the person and to your team as well. A lot of times, like what Chad said, you have to do is recalibrate what you're thinking about, because with business, it can be so uplifting and it can be so draining at the same time. I mean, who doesn't want to wake up to sales going after the rooftop? I know we all do, but that's just not our reality. And sometimes going back to really educate yourself on where the market is now from other people can really help you bring that vision back to life. Now, I also want to say, take advantage of the resources that AOF offer. Right now, AOF, FedEx, and 37 Oaks has a mentorship, which is a e-commerce learning lab that they have. They are taking applications now. That is a great program. I did the program like a little over a year ago. They offer you a market for the holidays, for whatever, you can put as many as, I believe, 3 products. They give you a whole marketplace. Okay, so they have the platform already built for you. You get to meet people nationwide in a group. So it really connects you to other business owners, regardless if you're just starting out or you're more seasoned. Also, I would say, if you haven't did a business plan and you're looking to start getting maybe more investments, or maybe looking at SBA loan, I would say Live Plan is going to be your best money. It's about $20 a month, but they give you everything that you possibly need. They break it down so it's very user friendly. They help you with your projections for the next 3 years. So if you don't feel like you're very good at math, they are here to help you. And I mean, they can help you with verbiage. I mean, anything you can possibly think of. It is a great resource. I have used it. I have got great reviews on it. So I would also say that's another good resource. A final one, if you do have a large team, or maybe 1 to 5 employees, Cascade. That's another resource that I would say use. The reason why is because instead of you always trying to check, well, has this been done? Has this been done? You can plug in and everybody can check off the list. If there's a different way to do things, it would reverberate, and then that way you'll know exactly where everybody is on that. So that way you won't have to constantly check in or send emails or a text message, or however you communicate with your team. You guys are doing it and you can actually see the progress that they're making. So I think a lot of those resources are very good to have. I would also say, even during the slow season, I'm going to just paraphrase the scripture, but it says, too much is given, much is required. This is a time where I would say, and this is what worked for me, and this is how, one of the reasons how it got me here talking to you guys. I took some of the focus off my sales and I looked at what I can do for other people. Meaning, I started thinking about what I can help in my community. For instance, now I'm working on like a back to school drive, where maybe backpacks, pencils, whatever, so that's my goal for the end of the year, for August, is to do a back to school drive. What I did was, I had no paid, nothing that was paid. I just started reviewing other people's products, meaning I was trying to drive more attention to another person's business. They didn't know me, I didn't know them. There was no paid review. That was just something that I wanted to do. And it got me and got Brittany's attention. So what I'm saying is that sometimes you have to really look at educating yourself. You have to look at what you can do for someone else, or maybe what you can do to your community. And it comes full circle, because when you do put good out there, it can come back onto you. And then two, you never know what networks you may bring in later on. So even if you don't see a direct result within maybe the first month or 2 months, you never know what's going to happen in the next 6 months. So that is something you also need to think about too, is that your business is more than just about making you money and making you sales. It's about, we're supposed to be helping the community as well. We're supposed to be making a difference in someone else's life outside of our own. That would make, to me, a good leader and a healthy business.
I don't even know. I don't even know where to start. Okay, hold on. Just a minute. Okay, let me double back because you mentioned so many good resources and we want to make sure that we got them all. Because you mentioned, Google courses, Udemy. You also said Live Plan was one,
Mhm.
Cascade.
Cascade is Taskade.
Cascade. Okay, great. Did I miss something else? I feel like I missed one.
One more is Parcel Monkey. Okay, so Parcel Monkey is good, like I said, for people who have product base. If you're selling anything, instead of trying to find out if UPS or FedEx or who DHL, whichever has the cheapest service for you when you're shipping something out, they do it for you. So it's going to give you a list of everyone, and they're going to tell you which one that may be best for whatever product that you're sending out. So they do the work for you. So that's a good one too.
Love that. Okay. Super helpful. And I love just like the content and the message in this question is that use this time to build yourself up, to make yourself a better business owner, whether that means like in your community, because Sheneka is right, you never know who's watching. Like I'm an outreach person for businesses, so I'm looking online for small business owners who can be a part of this network and share their information with other people. And the only way I know someone's interested in that is if they're doing that already. So I think it's such a powerful message that you want to be showing up and giving back to your community in your different spaces and sharing that those things are important to you. And Sheneka mentioned the FedEx e-commerce learning lab, which yes, you are a part of, and that is open right now. That's an educational grant program. So if you're out there, you have an e-commerce based business, that might be something you want to look into. And then the other thing, if you're looking for more financial education for your business, so you are like, my finances, I need to figure out some things, we have a free personalized learning system. It's called Learn with AOF. You don't have to pick the program or the course. You take a survey and we suggest one to you. So we'll drop that in the chat as well. But I think the overall theme here is there are so many things at your disposal. And I really appreciate Sheneka, you coming in and kind of starting us off of where we can start, because sometimes that is so overwhelming as well. Um, okay, Chad, my next question is for you. How do you coach business owners to make the most of their off seasons so that they can continue long-term growth?
Yeah, no, this is a good follow-up off of that question that Shaniqua just expounded on. I think for me, I look at it as, you know, there's soft and hard ways of doing that, right? When I think of more hard focused elements, it's like strategic planning. So, like, where do you want to be in the next 12 to 18 months? Forecasting what trends that you can prep for. I think system building is like really important, right? Like trying to think about all your manual tasks, figuring out ways that you can automate that, right? Remove some of those kind of daily activities and give yourself some space to think about more like strategic things, like, use your brain that way. I think something that is really undersold is like building like self-care habits. So my wife is like a therapist, right? And it's like I'm a big like emotional intelligent guy thinking about things like that. But one of the things that I did over the last like year was like I would implement like a 20-minute walk, right? Like just because like things are just, I have an office and whatever things of that stuff, but like a walk just kind of you see nature, you kind of grounded, here's where you are today. You woke up this morning, the sun rose. If the sun didn't rise, we all would actually die. So like being really grateful about things, I think that's helpful because it puts a lot of things in perspective, especially like as a business owner. It's super lonely. It is taxing emotionally. It's like running in the dark, right? Like so having these care habits are important, especially during those like slow times, because when there is an influx of activity and traffic, you've already built these behaviors like to be able to address that, right? And you're not becoming overwhelmed or you're not becoming frustrated or things of that sort because you've already kind of carved out a self-care kind of plan and strategy. And at the end of the day, like, yes, you're building a company in the best interest of like the customers, but if you're not at your optimal level, right, you're really just doing the market and your customers a disservice. So like I think it's super important to really think inwardly, then think about how you can take that value and put that outwardly to other folks. And I think the other part is like, again, obsess yourself like with the customer, like pain points, really trying to learn like what those customers challenges are, like what keeps them up late at night. I think if you could really wrap your brain around like I don't say I'm a business owner, I say like I'm a problem solver,
Mhm.
right? Because like people will pay an unlimited amount of money if you can solve their problems, right? So if you think about it that way, you think from the perspective like, where's the next problem that I can solve? I think use your time like that is being really intentional and being strategic all at the same time. But I think again, all these different things are just like options. I think you choose what's the most critical part for you. But I definitely would say something that's like a non-negotiable is like the self-care part. I think the systems obviously that has to come into play unless you want to do the same thing repetitively and work harder versus smarter. But I love the part that Shanika was saying about the professional development. I think, especially in this AI kind of revolution, it's just super important to stay sharp and abreast on a variety of different things because I think you just set yourself up for success and you're able to capture opportunities when you're already prepared and have planned in advance for that.
Yes, absolutely. And the fact that, self-care is something that you would coach your clients on, I think is really powerful because I do think when things are slow, sometimes we naturally want to scramble and it's like I should be grinding it out all the time. And we don't realize how much can help when we take that time for ourselves and kind of reset and level set. So super helpful. And then let's see. Oh, my next question is for you, Shanika. What have you learned about managing your cash flow or making tough choices during slow periods? Because sometimes that's just the nature of the game.
Well, I've looked at when money has gotten a little tight, I've looked at my subscriptions. What is it that I can suspend for maybe a month or two? Is it something else that I really need or something that I can probably, like I said, hold off on? I've looked at, my inventory. Should I spend this amount of money? So I have had to tweak the amount of money I have spent and a lot of money that has gone out. But, we're in the business where you have to kind of spend money to make money. So really, I would just say prioritize what you feel like you need now. What can you maybe hold off for the next 3 months if need be. It may be some things you can cut a little corners on. Don't be afraid that even if you are working full time and if you're trying to do your business, you're trying to transcend to from working full time to doing your business full time. If it does not work out like you planned, it's okay. Okay. It is okay. Your business will still be there. It will work. This is where we pivot. Okay. We've been doing this for quite a while now. It does not change. Don't be afraid. A lot of people feel like, I want to be able to do my business full time. And I read something a couple years ago that says creating a business is making a to-do list for yourself every day,
Mm,
and it's like that. So it's nice. Trust me. Social media will have it look like one way, and that's not always the case. There are days I've had to cry. There are days I've wanted to quit, and there was a message sent that let me know I couldn't quit. So you also got to really think about your customer base as well. Is it something that you can do business to business versus just business to customer? So there's different ways that you can reinvent in that sector as well. I'll always push this about making sure that you get those certifications that your state may offer or SBA, whether you're a woman owned business or minority owned business, minority owned supplier. Those still do hold a lot of weight, especially if you want to move into an area of maybe doing business in an airport. They are going to ask these questions. You're going to need that. So I would just look at when we think about cash flows, don't be afraid as well. I've done where I've pulled some things off the market. I made it seasonal.
Mhm.
That mean I didn't have to buy it at the point. So there's different ways that you can do things that can kind of help you with your pockets, financially, but also, it can still be there. And sometimes when you do pull a couple of things off the market, it kind of builds momentum for people to want it back. So just like with service based, maybe you can take some of your best service products that you have, your digital products, and maybe you could do something like bundling. That's another way that I've made some money about bundling different things, because if we look at the different stores now, for instance, a craft store like Hobby Lobby, they will give you summer, winter, and fall. They're going to give you Christmas, they're going to give you Thanksgiving, and they're going to give you summer activities all at the same time. So we're always going to be ever moving. So you just never know. One thing you may think, oh, nobody wants, could be the very thing somebody's been looking for. So just make sure that you just really do a hardcore look at all your activities that you have that's costing you money and what's bringing in, and just really start to look and see if something that you could, like I said, just to spend maybe for a month or two, is it something that you can maybe put together, such as bundling, or some things that are just not making any money, so that you don't spend more money in something that no one's buying.
Mm. Yes, such good points. And I think you really touched on something that a lot of people feel is that, not every month is going to be a good month. And some months you're going to feel like you want to quit. And then you go back to your reason, to your why, to your
Right.
customer, and that motivates you. So I think that's really powerful. Chad, what financial or operational habits can help businesses stay steady even when those sales dip?
Yeah, I think it's all about building like just good healthy habits, just like a diet, right? I think looking at your like monthly budget, checking in, really understanding the cash flow, what comes in, what goes out is like super important. And I would say not looking at that like once a quarter. I would say do that, as frequently and as often as possible. You want to really understand your margins. And that's super important to kind of figure out, all right, does this make sense to invest in this particular product or service? And like, is that return on investment as fruitful as I would like it to be or need it to be financially? I think the other thing is just like, this is harder. This is very, very difficult, but I think this is achievable. And it's setting aside like a 90-day cash buffer. That's doing little things like I love ice cream. My wife's always like, maybe you need to open up an ice cream shop. But, I would do things like, again, like maybe it's like, all right, I can't go out and like purchase stuff like that, right? Or like I can't go out and shop or like things like that. Like you're gonna have to, as a business owner, like I think people glamorize it, but like it takes 7 to 10 years, 15 years when like
Hmm.
things start to really like materialize. I think it's the habits of saying like being disciplined and say, all right, I'm not gonna spend, I'm not gonna go out, I'm not gonna, maybe not travel. Like those are the hard decisions that most often people are not able to make, which is why they're in the same place, right? So I think it's those type of behavioral habits that are super important. I think the other thing is like, again, leverage that technology, automation, kind of those type of tools, right? You really want to begin to work like smarter, not harder. And, looking at giving yourself opportunity to use that space that you typically would be doing all these manual tasks to think about new revenue streams, think about new like strategic lead flow partnerships, for instance, what Shanika was alluding to. Hey, that's how she met Brittany, right? She was like, let me start to do more engagement that now created more opportunities for her brand and her company to now have more visibility. So it's things like that that you want to be mindful of. But I think ultimately you're in the business that you're in is because you want to make money. Yes, you want to help, you want to do those other things. So you really want to be abreast financially on the different elements and cash flows of your business. So you're not in a situation where you're panicking because usually when you are in that situation, you make bad decisions.
Mhm.
Whereas if you can forecast it and say, all right, I can already see I have a seasonality business, this may be down. Like Shanika was saying, maybe you offload some of those operational expenses off momentarily. And then when the season picks up, you're already prepared. You already know, okay, these particular subscriptions or other services are now going to cost this much on my balance sheet. And now you can just really be able to understand your business more intelligently and comprehensively.
Yeah, that is super helpful. I like how it's a very clear standard, like having that 90 days of funds is a great goal to work towards. And I do like what you said about, making sure you're kind of taking those steps so that you're not in a place where you're panicking. Because I've heard, like, when you have a little bit of extra finances, you have the option to make a better decision. Because sometimes you don't have the money, you don't have as many options. So that can be extremely helpful in terms of the longevity of your business. Okay, we have one last question, and then we're going to get into the Q&A. So if you haven't dropped your questions in the chat or you've thought of something, please go ahead and do that so that we can ask Sheneka and Chad, because they'll be here for a little bit answering your questions live. So final question, Sheneka, I want to start with you. What's one piece of advice you would give to a small business owner who is navigating a slow season right now?
Get creative and don't give up. Don't get mad at yourself and give yourself some grace. Every day, as we all said, and we all know, it Chad has said as well, every day is not going to be the most positive, cash flowing day that you wanted. But this is the time, and the reason why you created this business because you had an idea. You wanted to express your creativity your way. The market needs you, and otherwise, you're going to be in business. So don't be afraid to be creative, as I believe Chad said as well, make a list. Don't overwhelm yourself. Make at least a list of three things that you thought I would not try this. Make the list. Make the list. Make the list. And once you make that list, then really just start to dabble in it. I always say, the one thing you can do is not do anything. You're guaranteed to have no results that way. So don't be afraid to just get creative and find out what works for you. We hope that during this time that we are getting those creative juices flowing right now so that you thought about some things and maybe you set it to the side and maybe you need to pick those things up and start to do those. I'm telling you, it sometimes is the most basic thing that you would never think to do can really be the lifesaver in your business that people would really grab a hold to and run with it. And it could be the game changer for you. So don't be afraid to tinker with some things. For example, let me just give a quick example. Of course, my things are collegiate. So, people love game day pens. I found a way that I'm going to implement in a couple months now where I'm going to do more personalized game day pens because I come across so many families that come to these games. For example, one family member, it was on her husband's dying wish list. He had a little bucket list that he wanted to, and he unfortunately passed from cancer 1 week before the first game, and they came out there to the game anyway. And I think it may be on one of my on my IG posts, but I did an interview with them. So I know that my business is more than just, like I said, it's more than a t-shirt, it's more than a pom-pom. It is there for a bigger purpose. I've came across people who, from all over the world. So, being an emerging business, I won't call it a small business, being an emerging business has so many advantages over these big box corporations because you can actually get in touch with your customers. You're able to speak. You don't have to worry. Analytics is good, don't get me wrong. But when you actually get in front of your customers and they're telling you what they want, it's the best. Okay. It's the best because you're hearing it from them exactly. You're not going to try to figure it out. And all those things work too. But what I'm saying is that don't be afraid to think that just because your business is not where you want it to be, that it's failing. It is not. You wouldn't be here if you didn't think what you were doing was important and that it was going to be beneficial. And most importantly, it was going to be successful. So get creative is what I would tell someone today.
Oh, I love it. Oh, I'm feeling inspired. And I don't even have a business to do nothing with, but y'all do. So, okay. And Chad, same question for you. What's one piece of advice you would give to small business owners who are navigating a slow season right now?
Yeah, I think Shaniqua like nailed a lot of them. I'm a spiritual guy, so if you're not, no worries. I totally understand that, but I definitely look at it like from the perspective of God wouldn't put this vision in your brain if it wasn't meant for you to materialize and bring to life, right? So, I bet you, I would argue that 70% of your friends more than likely probably have like jobs, which is not, there's nothing wrong with that, right? If your appetite for it to be more conservative, that's fine. You know, it takes a different type of personality to be an entrepreneur. And I would say, God knows what he's doing. So if he's given that to you in your brain and your heart to like bring this vision to life, just know that, it's going to be ups and downs and you're going to be faced with a lot of adversity, but that's what builds you and that's what makes you tougher. I think that at the end of the day, like mental toughness is more important than anything else. I think if you look at any successful person, not even money wise, just success, right? I think everybody has a reoccurring theme, and that theme is like never giving up and just having that mental toughness is like, yeah, maybe today's not my best day, but tomorrow may be better. And next week I may be exceptionally better. And then there's going to be days where I'm confused. And there's going to be days where like I have clarity. And there's going to be days where I have ambiguity. And like all that comes with it, right? But that's like the stock market. Like it fluctuates. But it's the ones that say, I'm going to invest $1 every day versus I'm going to invest when the market is high or I'm going to invest when the market is low. That person mathematically would be exponentially more wealthy than the person who invests when the market is up or invests when the market is down. So it's all about the consistency part of just knowing who you are and knowing like, look, this is what I care about. Today is something that is, going really well, and that's great. Never too high, never too low. Things are not too good as they seem or too bad as what they seem. But I think at the end of the day, man, believe in yourself. Like everybody has some sort of skill and gift. I believe we're born with that. I think your job is to find that and like give it to the world. And I think that is the most special thing you can do as an entrepreneur every day.
Oh, I love it. And so many people in the chat are really resonating with both of those final pieces of advice. I would love to hear from y'all. You took the time to come to all of our business owners who are in the audience today. You took the time out of your busy day because we know time is a limited resource. What is one thing that stuck out to you? We would love to hear that in the chat. While I go ahead and get into the Q&A, because we do have a couple of questions here. Um, our first question, Chad, I'm going to kick it to you, but Sheneka, obviously, if you have anything to add, please do. This person has a slow season due to hot summer months. They do indoor advertising, indoor digital advertising. So summer is slow for them. They're just wondering if there's any ideas or thoughts about how they can increase their revenue stream during the summer.
Yeah, I mean, I think quickly what comes to mind right now is like affiliate partnerships. So like there's other organizations that probably offer different products than you. I think trying to get your customers to now get exposed to those products could be advantageous, and then you get like a small margin on it. So, think about it from a perspective like drop shipping, right? You may, work with other customers or adjacent businesses that offer certain things. You may say, look, I can expose my customer base to this and I get some sort of like margin on that particular like cross reference or lead. So I think something like that is like that's thinking about it strategically where you still can offer your customers almost like a vertically integrated like portfolio of products that are not all streaming directly from your business, but it gives them, an opportunity to maybe like streamline that process through your company. So that's something that I would probably like just think about, based off of what your business is and kind of industry without knowing too much right now.
Yeah, that is super helpful. Um, and then Shanika, my next question is for you. This person is just trying to get their business going, and they're really wondering how do they get those first couple of clients so they can get some reviews. Do you have any recommendations for how to just get started with getting a couple clients?
Well, we're not knowing totally what it is that they do. I would say I would use your social media. Something as simple as sharing how you cook a dish, like a macaroni and cheese dish. People really get to see because there's so many variations with different recipes and ingredients. Sometimes it's best to use your social media. For one, it's free. You have access to hundreds and millions of people, and then also you get to see what kind of feedback you can get from that because they can put some in the comment section. Maybe they may share it. You can also try to get into maybe a physical event, Summertime brings out so many outdoor events that you can do. It could be an opportunity for you to get out there and to see what kind of feedback you get from customers or potential customers. If it's something that's service based, that may be something where you may want to do kind of like a little focus group, offer your services that are very discount rate. If you can do it for free, that's fine. But if you can do it for a minimal amount, just so that you can get the feedback, that could be an option. And that way you can kind of tweak back from the services or the feedback that you get from it. So that could be a good option for you. You just have to I would say, use your resources, because you will be surprised of all the things that you may think that you need from outside. It may be in your inbox. It may be, on your seat, something you may have saved on social media. It could be somebody that you know in your community or from a previous job. So you just never know.
Oh, I love that, especially seasonally. Great advice. There's so many things going on that it doesn't matter if people know who you are if you're in the right spot. So thank you both to Chad and Sheneka for coming and sharing so much valuable information. I can see from the chat that so many business owners have gathered a lot and they're inspired. We hope everyone that's here today was able to get something out of this conversation. If your question didn't get answered, don't worry. Tomorrow we're going to email out the recording. Maybe it's time to schedule a coaching session one-on-one. Even if your question did get answered, it might be really helpful for your business, especially if you're in this slow season. So stay in touch with Sheneka, Chad, us here at AOF, and we will see you all in the next one. Bye, everyone.